Hello, how we doing? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Happy Friday, everyone. Hope we're doing good. Once again, fighting computers, slight technical issues, but I should be able to. There we go. I can see the chat. Hello, Mr. J-Rod. J-Rod is first. Lost Soul, hiya on Twitch. Benjamin and Female Unix says, I've enjoyed your video essays for a while on YouTube. Welcome to Twitch. Thank you, thank you. So I'm multi-streaming, so I'm on YouTube and Twitch, and so it's nice. I've been meaning to set it up for ages, and I finally got around to it. So here we are. Here we are. Hey, yo, Benjamin. How you doing, man? How you doing? But yeah, how is everyone? Happy Friday. Another week completed. It feels like they they never stop coming, eh? Week after week after week until you eventually keel over and die. But aside from that, I'm doing good, gang. How are you? Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. This week was actually a pretty nice week for me. I think I was fairly productive. I got a good night's sleep every night. I can't complain, to be honest. Oh, hey, Meg. Happy Friday, man. Happy Friday. How are you doing? Um, Hey, I'm here, Mr. Sode. Nice to see you. Nice to see all the regular names. Always brightens up my evening when I see the regular names. But yeah, this week is as I was saying, this week has been good. Has been good. It's been like super hot. It's what's the temperature now? It's like 30 degrees. It is yeah, it's 27 Celsius, which is 81 degrees Fahrenheit. Amazing, and it's like 7:30 p.m. It's the dream. I feel like I'm in Spain or something. But yeah, I've been productive, focused, and actually felt good this week. What a crazy week! Ozzy Osbourne and Hulk Hogan died. Yeah, gone but not forgotten. Yeah, I can't say Hulk Hogan was was one that I'll particularly miss, but I know that he was influential, and I used to love wrestling games as a kid. But yeah, the main thing I remember about Hulk Hogan is that he like didn't he like bang his like best friend's wife or something, and then he sued the news outlet that leaked the story. Good old Hulk. He was such a liar as well. But yeah, RIP, I guess. Ozzy Osbourne is also one that I don't know a whole lot about. My best interaction with him was through Sharon Osbourne. She used to host the X Factor. It's like American Idol in the UK. But I don't know much about Ozzy either. He's the one who ate the head off a bat, right? One time. Mr. Hollywood was an icon. Maybe I just missed the prime era, and he pulled a Kanye in his later years, Hulk Hogan, and kind of went off the rails. I know the feeling. I feel like I have terrible taste in celebrities. Like at least like 1 in 5 of my favorite celebrities has just gone off the rails at some point and broken my heart. That's the one good thing about being a Kanye fan. You learn to not get too parasocial. I never watched the Osbournes, Meg. I never actually got. That was the one reality show I never actually got around to watch it. I bet it was absolutely mental though. Sharon Osbourne was crazy, and from what I know, Ozzy Osbourne was also crazy. I wonder how the kids turned out. To be honest, Ozzy biting the head off a bat and a pigeon was dead ass cultural. Yeah, that's the thing, right? I know that even though I don't know anything about Ozzy Osbourne. Where are we? Let me try and get my chat ready. Okay, Control Alt 11. One day I'll be able to launch a stream without having technical problems and reply to the chat in a timely manner. One day, one day. Oh yeah, speaking of rap, actually, new Tyler the Creator album dropped as well this week. I've not listened to it all, but first few songs sounds pretty solid. I love that he just doesn't do any promo, just releases the album and lets us enjoy it. He's a good man. He's a good man. I tell you what, he's gone the opposite direction to Kanye. Tyler the Creator has been he was the celebrity I had the least faith in lasting, and yeah, he's just blossomed and bloomed. What a man! What a man! Yeah, he released an album on like Maybe it was on Monday or something. Yeah, I've yet to listen through it, but he's had a proper bloom. I'm proud of the guy. Him and Earl. Meg says, "Oh, it was so good. You would have been a little too young to remember the show, but if you have Tubi in Canada, I heard the seasons are on the Amazon Prime too." Oh, Meg, I've got a pirate set up. It's all set up, man. I can get anything under the sun. But I will add it to the ever-growing list of shows to watch. Sometimes I feel like I'm in need of some good slop. Good slop. Tell you what, I did watch the other day. Actually, wait, Benjamin says Graduation of Pete Kanye will always be remembered as one of the greatest hip hop albums ever produced. Yeah, mate, everything through to like Life of Pablo was pretty solid. He kind of fell off after that, but he had a good run. He had a better run than most artists. I haven't heard from him in a few months, but I hope he stays quiet. Yeah, I saw that Chuck Mangione died. I don't really know who that is. I think that's an American celebrity. I just assumed he was related to Luigi in some way. But who was Chuck Mangione? He was an American jazz musician, composer, and flugelhorn players. Ah, he's a member of Art Blakey's band. Okay, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know shit about jazz to be honest. But I guess R.I.P. Chuck, man. He gets an R.I.P. as well. Oh, man, to be honest, it feels like the world fell off after Life of Pablo. 2016 was definitely the last good year. The last year where everything felt somewhat normal, somewhat stable. Uh, Once again, I just need to fix this. What's this? Control Alt F11. Come on. Okay. Hang on. Let me try and gonna try and fix things. Okay. Okay. Is this working? No. My computer has decided to stop functioning. Ah, there we go. Right, we're back. We are so back. Sadaf says, oh, I didn't know you streamed one of my favorite content creators for real. Thank you, Sadaf. Thank you, Sadaf. Yeah, if you watched the video in like the last year, it's been recorded live and then we edit it to fuck afterwards. Also the first year Trump took office. Yeah, it was also the year of Brexit in the UK. Everything went downhill after 2016, to be honest. It was the year I finished high school as well, actually. Uh, yeah. I was so optimistic in 2016. I thought I could do anything, man. I definitely thought I had the world at my disposal in 2016. God. Wait, will this be a video or a stream? The presentation part of this stream will be a video. So yeah, the actual topic will be a video in a week or two. But obviously not this bit of us just yapping. Thank you, Annie RG, for the follow on Twitch as well. Appreciate it. Okay, there we go. We're back. But yeah, what I've been up to this week, have I been up to this week? I have been incessantly reading. Oh, I'll tell you what, actually, the first thing that happened is my bike lights got stolen the other day. You know what? I get mega paranoid, right? Whenever I'm in public, I always find like a hidden spot to park my bike. And a couple of days ago, I had a conversation with myself and I was like, you're too paranoid. Nobody's going to steal your bike in broad daylight. And so I left my bike in broad daylight and someone stole my bike lights. It was heartbreaking. I felt like my paranoia was validated, you know? It's a paranoia if you're right. My bike was intact, but someone took the lights. To be fair to me, at the spot that I parked it, there was a guy like injecting some kind of drug, like 10 feet away. So I probably should have expected something to happen. I'm just glad the bike was still there when I came back. My area's okay though in terms of I'll take the bike lights being gone. Amazon can get another $20 from me. I'm also saying this as if I haven't had a bike stolen already. My bike was stolen like 6 months ago. No, like 4 months ago. Uh, but yeah, I've learned my lesson. Be paranoid. Maybe my phone is listening to me at all times. Sadaf Khan says, "What's your favorite video you've ever made?" Ooh, I think my favorite one was I made one after the whole Luigi Mangione situation, explaining why United Healthcare is quite controversial, and I think that one was my favorite in terms of research because I made it really quickly and I learned a lot about health insurance, and I got a lot more sympathy from Luigi for Luigi than I already had. So yeah, I really like that one. I recommend watching it if you're interested in learning a bit more about the context behind United Healthcare. Hey, Smile, how you doing? How you doing? Um, I feel like I haven't seen you in a few streams. I meant to mention that I did finally get around to watching Idiocracy. I don't know if I ever said it. It was a bit too true to life. I feel like I should have watched it a few years ago. But yeah, it was highly entertaining. Okay, yeah, great movie. Highly enjoyed it. Felt a bit too real. Definitely was was more of a documentary. Dude, the best thing about living or staying in Europe is the benefits of both Amazon and Temu. You get cheaper bikes from Amazon and even cheaper bikes in bulk about Temu. To be fair, when I thought about my bike lights getting stolen, I realized that I kind of deserved it because I'm like 70% sure that the bike I have now was also stolen. I bought it off Facebook Marketplace for like way below market rate. And the guy I bought it from was selling like three or four bikes out of his like apartment in just a random part of town. Didn't look like much of a cyclist, but you know, I'm not going to complain. 100 quid for a bike, I'll take it. So if my bike is in fact stolen, I think giving back the bike lights to the to the community is me paying my retribution. 15 years later, it's okay. I remember that stream was popping. I think you had thousands of people at the time. I don't think I've hit thousands of people, but it was popping. Yeah, it's nice. I keep saying I'm going to stream more often, and I've been writing down ways to make that happen, but we'll see. Just picture someone else's happiness meter filling up as yours decreases. That is basically what happened. Yeah, I think it's the virtuous cycle of theft. Bike theft, I think, is it's a community act. Um, I once bought a super cheap bike that sucked. The wheel popped and I left it out overnight. I'm pretty sure the thief was very disappointed with it. Yeah, that's what when I finished university, I had to leave. I had to like get rid of my bike, so I just left it unlocked and prayed that it went to a good home. But I think my bike thief probably had a similar story of being stuck with a shitty bike. But yeah, it sounds like you can hear me all right. Let's see how is this doing. There we go. Real super unrelated, but some places in the world are hitting record high temperatures, dangerous levels of heat, and some people still don't believe climate change is effing baffling. Oh, mate, it's the same here. It's been ridiculously hot this summer and last summer, and in the UK, like I saw like an article in the FT about air conditioning salesmen in the UK are absolutely making a killing. They're getting calls at like 2, 3 a.m. because nobody in the UK has air conditioning because for most of human history they've not really needed it. But for the last few years, the temperatures have been so crazy that air conditioning salesmen are just getting called up in like the middle of the night and making an absolute killing. It's crazy this summer, especially. Everywhere as well. Like there's been these heat domes in North America here. It's been super hot in the UK, Italy, France, in like like Pakistan and Iraq and the Middle East as well. It's been crazy, like people dying and stuff. Someone should really look into it. There might be a good reason why it's happening. Christoph Alice, you haven't missed anything. Also, sounds like it's your first time in chat, but welcome. Yeah, you haven't missed anything. We're still at the preamble before we actually get to the topic of the stream. Lest you worry. I'm in Queensland, Australia, and it's gonna be so fucking 10 years. Yeah, Australia is finished, mate. It is finished. It's already like 80% desert. What about the major earthquakes around the Ring of Fire? Yeah, getting a bit anxious about living in New Zealand because there hasn't been a big one in a while. I think there are a few places which aren't going to be affected by this. Um, maybe if you're in like maybe it's a good time to move to I don't know Denmark or something, somewhere it's super cold. It's going to get to a nice temperate temperature. Yeah, I hope you don't get hit by a quake. People lie to about the mechanics of global warming via propaganda. Everyone collectively forgot their elementary school understanding of the greenhouse effect. Well, it's half that, right? And it's half as well that it's quite hard to care about it when there's like, there's like actual like wars and people dying and stuff. Climate change just ends up falling down the list of stuff that people care about. It doesn't help that the governments don't really care about it, and the AI industry and stuff doesn't care about it. But yeah, I've saved a few videos. One of the best videos actually I watched on this topic was by a dude called Simon Clark. Yeah, I've saved a couple of his videos to watch later. But he's a climate scientist, and he made this incredible video. I've been watching this guy for like close to 10 years now. He used to be like a student blogger, but he made this video here. How much progress have we made on climate change? And it will make you feel a little better. We are still cooked, but we're a bit less cooked than we were 30 years ago. I'm not gonna play the whole
On
video,
YouTube.
but the principle of the video is that the guy built like a diorama. This is like a real little diorama of a globe, and he uses it to teach you like a bunch of climate science. It bangs. It bangs. Smile, he is great. He is great. Yeah, when I was a student, I used to watch his like university vlogs to get myself hyped for applying for university and things like that. And I'm glad that he's been able to develop. Sorry, if the amateur shit's done, Europe is gonna go from heat wave to ice age. Neither of those are great options, right? Also, Meg, you went to London and Rome. When was that? Was that in the last couple of weeks? I don't know if you mentioned. How was it? How was London? You've been to London more recently than I have. London in the summer is such a different place to London in the winter. People are in such a better mood and are just way less depressed all the time. It's so good. Oh, also, is that? Yeah, there we go. Link says, any advice for young artists specifically? I'm an illustrator who just graduated high school and I'm very skeptical about art school. Mate, I feel like I'm not the man to ask about art school. uh, I guess about anything art related in general. Like I was a full blown STEM person until like 3-4 years ago. Um, I mean I went to uni to do sciences, and all I would say is that art school seems like it's really expensive, and I don't know how much it helps. Um, the one piece of advice I think is useful is that if you can take some time, like a year or something, and stay at home and work on your art or whatever you want, and just save up some money, I think that's a great idea. That's what I did when I finished school. Like I took a full year and I worked. I spent like all day in the gym. It was great, and I just like developed myself and figured out what I wanted for that year, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I know that when you finish like high school, a year feels like a really long time, but in 10 years, you'll be so glad that you took a year to think about things. That's the only advice I can give you. here in the US South, our AC's been going out and our home has been an average of 35 to 40. Oh my Lord. That, yeah, I would end it if, oh my God, that's horrible. Yeah, I've heard it's really bad in Texas specifically, right? In where is it? In not Austin, Phoenix. No, that's in Arizona. Yeah, Austin's really bad, but I think Phoenix is one of the worst. Hold on. I'm actually gonna turn down my air conditioning. Give me a sec. My building doesn't actually have air conditioning, but I got this like juiced out portable air conditioner. And because the electricity is included with my rent, I just milk it 24 hours a day, baby. Smart says, I recently discovered an old professor called Paul Taylor. It's a philosophy channel. Oh, okay, let me give that a search. Paul Taylor. The only Paul Taylor that's coming up is the comedian Paul Taylor. Uh, Meg says, I went about a month ago for Cowboy Carter. Oh, sick. Oh, sick. I was there for 3 days, then went to Paris for a night, then to Rome for a day as well. Oh, that's sick. That's like a proper. People who come to visit Europe, I think, like do it so much better than people who live there. Like I lived in, obviously in the UK for years, and I really took it for granted. But it sounds like you made the most of it. It sounds like you made the most of it. How did you find London overall? Iron Squid said, I was set on getting into college to become an engineer. Everyone said it was a good choice, but then I changed my mind and went into the trades instead. Okay, nice. Finished my apprenticeship in 1 year. Good shit. Good shit. Yeah, I think the trades are a good option, and a lot of people, I guess, don't consider them, but there's always trade-offs, right? No pun intended. And I hope it works out. You're watching the stream while you were there. Oh, nice. You pulled through, Meg. You pulled through. Appreciate it. That says we have crazy days around. Sorry. Lost Soul says there were 4 heat waves in the UK this year. Currently, it was lucky that we're seeing clouds and small rain. God, 4 heat waves in a year is mad. It's honestly just getting like these are going to be the most chill summers of the rest of our lives, which is wild to think about. Yeah, it's only going to get crazier from out here. Just fast electric and right now, lovely. Yeah, man, gonna milk it. We have crazy days this time around. Can be around 18 during the day, and then we plunge to 0 at night. Had ice happening on Cat's Water. Wow. Oh my god. Bear with me, gang. The one thing I was watching a thing about Austin today actually, and apparently rent prices are going down dramatically in Austin because a bunch of people moved there during the pandemic, thinking that it was going to be like the new California, and a few tech companies moved there and like juiced all the housing prices. But everyone's been leaving in the last year because it's fucking boiling out there, and apparently rent has been dropping like 30-40% in some areas, which is quite nice if you're from Austin, I guess, to see the rent go down. Readers of the Lost Ark, no worries. Putting it in now. Ooh, okay. I'm just gonna save his uh Epstein video. Thank you for the recommendation, Smile. I love me some small channel YouTube. Honestly, the main problem is given to Hot Wheels. You know, in cyberpunk dystopias, they always have more porn and sex than they know what to do with. But in our dystopia, they're making OnlyFans illegal. Who's banning OnlyFans? I saw something about a Guna ban earlier on. I didn't. I didn't properly register it. I don't think anyone's banning OnlyFans. OnlyFans is like the only significant British export of like the last decade. I feel like Tech Bros are treating Austin as bureaucratic dirty money. Yeah, I think a lot of it was also like culture war stuff, right? The hyping up Texas played into this whole idea that California is dead and that the big cities are dying and Texas is where it's at. But turns out that they quite like California, where it's like warm and sunny every day and doesn't get into boiling temperatures. Sweden made online sex work illegal. That doesn't sound true. Sweden. Huh, okay. What's this all about? Sweden will soon ban paid, live streamed, and custom made sexual content online. Hmm. Okay, so apparently it criminalizes the buyers, not the sellers. And if it's pre-recorded, it's legal. Okay, so apparently it's like I guess maybe a human trafficking thing. They're trying to ban like campsites, but if you pre-record it, it's all good. Dungeon says OnlyFans is British. It is. It is. It's the biggest British tech company of like the last decade, which is hilarious. Funny Blue and OF is a since Anthony Ionesco. Honestly, the UK is yeah, we found our industry, I think. T app got doxed. That's juicy. I don't know who T app is or what that is. Sorry, I'm not in that online circle. But yeah, yeah. I'll be honest. The main thing that's been consuming my week still, and I'm surprised it's still in the news, is the Epstein stuff. I can't get it. I can't get enough of it, gang. I can't get enough of it. I'm definitely I'm on the brink of going full QAnon. I've been listening to so many clips of like of MAGA people for whom like this is the final straw and they're finally tapping out. I heard one. I saw one clip of a radio show. It's like it was like a call-in MAGA show, and the guy on the other side of the phone was just breaking down, crying about how he's been so hurt by. I need to find the clip for you. I can't even describe it in words. Fuck are you on? Oh my god, I'll have to find the clip in a second, then we'll watch it. Tea app is an app for women to spill tea on men. I didn't even know that existed. I know there's those like Facebook groups, right? I know where it's like you can um you can post a picture and be like, oh, this is has anyone dated this person? I didn't realize there was a dedicated app for it. That's kind of wild, but with what the internet is like today, I don't blame them. Yeah, I'm familiar with TV and gossip. I just didn't realize that there was an app dedicated to it. I was so out the loop. That's the one, Smile. Are we dating the same man? Yeah, I've seen that. I had to explain last week. Epstein was a cover up. Last week Epstein was a conspiracy. This week it's a cover up. Man, it's Obama, man. Obama keeps just trying to screw us. He keeps writing these files that implicate the president. And he forced him to say that he was going to release them only to to backtrack. Goddamn Obama. Man, the thought of Obama just like sat in his office laughing his tits off that his 15-year plan to screw over Donald Trump has finally has finally paid off. Obama, why Obama? Mr. Cynic, have I've not been able to explain it. There's so much evidence. There's more evidence that came out today, wasn't there? What came out today? Um, oh yeah. This is the one. I had it up already. This one. So the Department of Justice is meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell after saying that obviously there was nothing to see here. They've now decided to actually initiate meetings. And when you read the headlines, oh God, yeah, when you read the headlines, you'll see like Deputy Attorney General meets with Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell. I think this slightly misrepresents what's happening. The dude who's meeting with Ghislaine um, is this guy here, Todd Blanche, and he's not just like the Deputy Attorney General. He was Trump's personal lawyer, and he's going on his own to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell. They're 100% going to make her do some kind of deal to not snitch on Trump. But I'm also curious to see how she plays it, because because like she can't say that he's innocent too early unless she's got something set in stone. Because if she says he's innocent and she doesn't have something in writing, Trump is immediately going to turn on her and not let her out. But if she doesn't make a deal, she's got 20 years in the slammer. So I'm curious to see how this pans out. But yeah, when you see these headlines, it's worth remembering that this guy is Trump's personal lawyer. He defended him in the impeachment trial and everything. And so it's not that the Department of Justice is meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell. Like Trump has sent his personal lawyer to go meet with her. Also worth knowing that they didn't do a single meeting with her after she got found guilty. Like Biden didn't do one, Trump didn't do one. Nobody thought to check if she knew anything. Oh yeah, let me find that clip of the MAGA homie. I need to. Oh, by the way, the way I know that they're going to try and do some kind of deal is this clip I saw, and I've actually got it saved, of Newsmax, the news outlet. They're already trying to like soft launch the idea that Ghislaine Maxwell was a victim of Jeffrey Epstein and not a perpetrator. Hang on, let me show you the clip.
But she's in jail for how long now? 20 years, a 20-year sentence. Well, Alan Dershowitz is one of the greatest attorneys who ever lived, and he has this to say about the Ghislaine Maxwell situation, speaking with Newsmax veteran Eric Bolling.
Should Ghislaine Maxwell be behind bars?
She shouldn't be, but she is. She is really serving Jeffrey Epstein's sentence after he committed suicide. There was no one else to prosecute because there was no real information against anybody else. And so they went after her and they sentenced her to a sentence that would have been appropriate for Epstein, but not at all appropriate for her. And so she's appealing now, and I hope the appeal will be granted. She deserves to be out.
She deserves to be out. And maybe she never deserved to be in there in the first place. Now, how could you say such a thing? I mean, these are perverts. These are child molesters. We've heard that from whom? From the media? From prosecutors? Prosecutors prosecuted President Trump over nothing. I don't know, but I'm skeptical of everything and everybody these days, and you should be too.
I didn't even show you the opening of the clip, but this is what Newsmax is saying. But now they're trying to like soft launch this idea, like Ghislaine Maxwell was actually a victim of the court system, and his argument is that prosecutors found her guilty. You know who else prosecutors trying to get? Donald Trump. This line of argument is like, oh, you wear shoes. You know who else wears shoes? Child predators. It's like, all right, okay, like prosecutors can't also prosecute child predators. But yeah, this is I think this is the best evidence that they're trying to like assess how a Ghislaine Maxwell pardon would go down with the public by like having all of the propaganda outlets begin to kind of soft launch the idea that what if she didn't do anything? What if she was actually just caught up with it? She was 100% a full-blown child sex trafficker, by the way. She would drive around high schools waiting for the girls to come out to like give them her number and stuff and basically groom them into thinking they'd get a modeling career. Like this is not it's not even up for debate. She was the main person. And now they're trying to be like, maybe he knows, maybe we rushed it a little bit. Maybe we rushed it. She might just be a victim. By the way, the other guy they interviewed, he'll come up in a second. The other guy they interviewed is Alan Dershowitz, who was Epstein's personal lawyer. Alan Dershowitz was also the personal lawyer of O.J. Simpson, Harvey Weinstein, and Donald Trump during his impeachment trial. The guy is like the closest thing on earth to like a willing supervillain. His personal explanation for Epstein was that he once had a massage by a young lady of uncertain age at Epstein's house, but he kept his boxers on. That's his words, not mine. Yeah, that dude there, Alan Dershowitz, also was a Harvard professor for like 35 years, by the way. But yeah, they're setting up these meetings with Ghislaine Maxwell. This was supposed to be in front of Congress, but they shut down Congress a day early, and they're not coming back for another 5 weeks, so that Trump can send his lawyers in to like investigate the whole situation and to presumably strike a deal. And then they need to start to like figure out how to spin it so that it doesn't look more guilty than they already look. I think likely the best way that's going to happen is by just waiting until like Trump's last day in office and then running the pardon. Because then who cares what happens when he's already out? Oh hey Mitchell gave a $5 super chat. Says, I got the girlfriend over, so I can't stay to chat, but keep up the amazing work. Been keeping up with your uploads. You're choosing your girlfriend over me. I guess I know what your priorities are, Mitchell, eh? Know who you really love. But yeah, I appreciate that, Mitchell. Yeah, really appreciate the super chat. Have a good evening with your girlfriend, man. It's just funny that Mitchell is in chat and he's he says I'm his favorite, and people can change, man. People change. People flip on you just like that. No, I appreciate it, Mitchell. But yeah, as I was saying, I am deep in the Epstein stuff because every day it just gets more and more ridiculous. And now they're trying to run this fucking scam that Ghislaine Maxwell didn't actually do anything and that she wasn't a major child predator. I appreciate it, Mitchell. I appreciate it, Mitchell. Your girlfriend doesn't have to see these messages. But yeah, oh yes. Also, in some, I guess, more positive news, we have a trade deal. Well, I say we. I'm not involved in this. I guess the global economy has a trade deal. There was a Japan trade deal that was signed just recently, literally a couple of days ago on Wednesday or Tuesday, and they're getting 15% tariffs, which is still crazy high, by the way. Like the tariff thing is just still going on in the background, But the thing I found quite funny is that any of these announcements, whenever they sign a deal, they always try to get like a big number for the headlines. So for this one, they claim that Japan agreed to invest um 500 billion in the US. But I think they're just making the numbers up because this picture leaked of the press conference where Donald Trump announces that Japan is signing this $500 billion trade deal. And you can see that it said 400 billion, but they just crossed it out and just turned it to a 5. Which, by the way, in the speech, Trump bumped it up by another 50 billion and said 550. So I would be skeptical of these numbers. They just like cross them out. This reminds me of the time there was that hurricane and Trump lied about where the hurricane was going to hit. And so they edited the map with an extra bit of Sharpie so, so that it would cover Alabama. The full story of this is that there was going to be a hurricane, and Trump said on the news that it was going to hit Alabama, or like on Twitter or something. That was not true. So the NOAA, the weather forecasting office, had to add a Sharpie marker, or maybe Trump added it himself, that extended the map to cover Alabama. This was actually quite a big deal because people started evacuating Alabama when they saw his tweets saying like, "Yo, get out of Alabama because you're gonna get hit by this hurricane." And they, instead of just being like, "Oh, our bad, stay where you are because it's not gonna hit this place," they just edited it in Sharpie. This is the same stuff that's happening with the trade deals. Like, if they think the number isn't big enough, they just bump it up. What's another 100 billion? Yeah, this was Trump 1. This was the first time that this happened. It's absolute lunacy, by the way. Like, this is actually like such a big deal because hurricane evacuation is like such a strain on all the roads and the transport systems that you need the absolute like minimum number of people necessary to evacuate. Having an extra few thousand people evacuating can be a big deal. Think of hotels and motels and things like that. But yeah, they just were like, nope, we're gonna add an extra loop on top of like an official weather forecasting. Love it. There we go. So yeah, you said 550. The graph said 400. They just bumped it up to 500. Also, by the way, one of the craziest things about this Japan deal, Japan's been through a bit of a rough situation lately, to be honest. And it's actually been really hard for the US to sign a deal with Japan because they had their elections coming up for most of the negotiations, which they've just had. And basically the ruling party in Japan didn't want to negotiate a deal on rice because, for all my complaining about America, lots of other countries also have it quite rough. And Japan's been struggling with increasing rice prices, which has like decimated the average household. It's great for tourists, but they're really struggling. And part of the deal was going to be to allow Japan to import American rice, which would help push the price down and actually be a good thing for Japanese people. But the rice lobby in Japan is so powerful that they didn't want to agree a deal on rice because they didn't want to affect their chances of getting re-elected. They have like the same thing that happens in all countries, right? You have like the lobby and the people, and often their needs can clash. And so the Japanese are like, the price of food is so expensive. We'll take the American shit, whatever. But the Japanese didn't want to sign a deal, and now that they've had an election, it's become a lot easier for them to sign a deal. And they're going to take in some rice, but I don't know what the exact details are. One thing that is quite significant is that the 15% tariff means that Japanese cars have a lower tariff than Canadian and Mexican cars, which have 25% tariff. And so that's a bit bizarre because Canadian and Mexican cars actually use quite a lot of American parts, but they have a higher tariff than Japanese cars, which use basically no American parts. I would like to say that this is the biggest problem with these guys' negotiation skills, but probably quite low on the list. Benjamin says my super racist uncle truly believe that Trump's economic policies will work. I mean, if they work, ideally I would like them to work. I don't want people's lives to get worse, but I think you got to have some wild leaps of logic to land on the conclusion that it's going to work as expected. Nico Nugget says, I'm actually curious with all of these things that the government's been able to get away with. Do you think there's any way for us to do anything or to hold these people accountable? Yeah, bro. This man is the Teflon Don, bro. Nothing fucking sticks, bro. Nothing sticks. He is the Teflon Don. I don't know what you can do, to be honest. It seems like the Epstein thing is like the one thing that's starting to stick with people, but I guess the best thing you can do is to talk to someone in real life who kind of believes that all of this stuff is going to work and figure out how they got to their conclusion. I'm not quite sure there's that much you can do. But I tend to be a doomer about this stuff and think that we're completely fucked in every regard. So don't listen to me. Japanese rice farmer would go bankrupt if they competed with American rice farmers. Well, I'm not gonna lie, I'm quite biased against farmers in general because farmers get an incredibly good deal in wealthy countries. In the EU, 40% of their annual budget is literally just farm subsidies, and farmers have so much power. I'm like, fucking hell, like, I'd rather a few big rice farmers go bankrupt than Japanese citizens can't eat rice, which is what's happening now, right? Like the government, they're having to get government rice. Yeah, so I don't know. I think it can be easy to hate on Trump, but I think in this case, the Japanese government's actually been really hurting its own citizens by not letting them be able to buy affordable food as well as rice, which is literally like a staple. So I think they definitely need a hand while they sort out their lobby and their harvests. Smart says, because after the wall went down, gloves went off, and then we got the list, names people joined the party, knock it down. Trump is making the US less attractive for investment, so the dollar will be weaker, which can help US exports. It can also push investment to other countries, which is good for the world. Yeah, I think net, like once like Donald Trump is dead, this is going to be a good thing for the rest of the world. The rest of the world has realized that you can't rely on America forever to be somewhat reasonable, and you got to get your own chips in a line. So I think net, this is going to be good for the rest of the world. It's massively encouraged them to get this stuff in order. I'm not worried about economy. I'm worried about the autocratization of the US. Oh yeah, that's a whole separate problem, mate. Yeah, I don't think you can really do shit about that. I guess contact your local representative is all I can say. Yeah, I don't know what your local representatives are like, but if you can keep the pressure on, contact them. I don't know how they're reachable via letter or on social media. That's really the best thing you can do. And vote in local elections as well. Like there are presumably some local elections coming on. There's always some local stuff. Keep up to date with them. Some local elections get like 30% turnout or like 20% turnout. And in those elections, like your vote actually matters quite a lot. If you're in the US, you can vote for local judges, that stuff, right? Like city councilors, all of that stuff is where you can actually have an impact with your vote. Very true. Yeah, American food standards are not the best. That is very true. Because they're trying to get I know they're trying to get American beef into Australia as well, and the Australians are like, we don't want that shit. They tried to get American chicken in the UK, and we were not having that shit either. America self-proclaimed itself the ruler of everything. I'm not having that. I don't have to live in a fascist regime to make the rest of the world better yet. I can say that given that I'm not American, I'm eventually going to at least somewhat benefit from this. But for the time being, it is quite scary. It is quite scary. And just make sure that you actually like engage and vote in local stuff. Local stuff is where you can have the most impact, and your local representatives have more power in your life than you might realize. So it all starts from the bottom, in a sense. Yeah, I am a doomer, and it just feel like there's nothing you can do. But keeping the pressure up and just making sure people are still talking about this stuff is the best way, right? Like not getting complacent about these stories is important. Man, it's not, I would say 30 years ago, the US was in a much better state, to be honest. The budget was better, at least, right? Hey yo, praise the sun. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're still in the yap phase, so you are just on time. Nico says it's crazy how the people that had those survival bunkers to live off the grid for years on end might actually be some of the, the logical ones with how little power we have. Yeah, well, billionaires are getting loads of bunkers now. That's the big trend amongst the billionaires. In New Zealand as well, actually, mainly. They're setting up these bunkers because it's like basically the most self-sufficient country in the world at this stage. So yeah, you might have missed the wave. But if you can get yourself a setup, I'd highly recommend it. Here in North Idaho, the Republicans almost destroyed the community college, and they successfully destroyed the library network. That's a real shame. I know Idaho's like a super red state. I don't know if you saw a few months ago that teacher that got in trouble in Idaho for this sign that she had in her classroom. This was the one. That was it. I went mega viral. There we go. There we go. Teacher ordered to remove signs from classroom, including one saying "Everyone is welcome here." So she had this sign in her classroom saying "Everyone is welcome here," and the school board made her remove it because apparently it was too political. Which does lead to the obvious question of who is not welcome in a in a school classroom. Yeah, she took this to like the next level of the school board, and they were like, nope, it's you're not allowed. It's too political. This was a really big deal. This was in Idaho. It was not that long ago. There we go, March 2015, 2025. Yeah, they made her take down the sign. Apparently this literally the most inoffensive sign I've ever seen. But yeah, I guess we all know who's not welcome in the Idaho classrooms. And she put these up 5 years ago, right? These weren't even like a recent thing that she had put in the classroom. There, she first put up these two signs 5 years ago, and it was only now that the school district felt like these were suddenly too political to keep in a school classroom. But yeah, that was that was the impression I got of Idaho. Oh, this was the other sign actually as well. In this room, everyone is welcome, important, accepted, respected, encouraged, valued, and equal. I don't see the problem. It's well, I guess there's a rainbow on it. That tends to send some people into a tizzy. But yeah, this was one of the signs she was also supposed to remove. Apparently, these are overtly political. They're the most milquetoast plain signs you can see in a classroom. And that was too much for the school district in Idaho. What an article, eh? So someone woke up and decided to write this article. Everyone is welcome is not innocent. It's DEI in disguise. This is an opinion piece by the Attorney General Raul Labrador. This guy, the Attorney General for Idaho. Yeah, so this is Idaho's Attorney General. Apparently saying everyone is welcome is DEI in disguise. I'm just gonna read this paragraph. Right, this is meant to be like a massive diss of the of this of this poster, but this is what this guy is the attorney general. This guy's one of the most senior lawyers in Idaho. These classroom displays reflect the broader ecosystem of political resistance groups launched in protest of the political rise of President Donald Trump. The All Are Welcome Here movement, founded in November 2016 by progressive activists in Minnesota, explicitly states its mission as supporting a just, inclusive, and equitable environment while donating thousands of dollars to progressive causes, including the American Civil Liberties Union. Sounds pretty chill, to be honest. Like, if you're against if you're against an organization that's supposed to a just, inclusive, and equitable environment, then presumably you're for an unjust, exclusive, and inequitable environment. Wild. Anyways, we're not going to bother reading this. I'm going to lose brain cells if I do, but that's what I know of Idaho. I'm sure it's a nicer place than that. But yeah, this is where we're at now, man. This is where we're at. Everyone is welcome here. Is too political for a school classroom. See, Trio says, I had a talk with the city councillor. When the left is in power, they try to get funds for public transit. When the right is in power, they try to get funds for highways, but I'm unable to pork. Well, that's the thing. I think definitely at a city level, the dynamics can vary quite significantly as to what happens, which is why you got to be engaged to know what's going on. And Meg, yeah, 100% a parent complained, 100%. No kid would care about this sign. It was definitely like a senior leadership teacher or a parent that complained. Really nice that I played too much Fallout. Peter Thiel would probably build the world's Volta and give it a name based on Lord of the Rings. Peter Thiel being a Lord of the Rings super fan is like one of the biggest ironies in the world, I think. That man did not get a single message. Like, he did not understand any of them, even the basic level subtext, mate. Like, he always names his company will be like the most evil thing in the world, and he'll name it after like something similarly evil from Lord of the Ring and just not even question it. Have you seen how Visa and MasterCard is censoring games on Steam and itch.io? I did. I saw the Charlie video about that. Yeah, this is where we're at now. Like, I think people have been so emboldened, and that's the scary thing. Like, people have been so emboldened to just push the line further and further that we're just getting everything just start like the dam's starting to break, right? So you're getting these situations where people are now banning games because they contain themes they don't like threatening payment providers. It's a bit scary. It's a bit scary. That's really what's the scariest, is that people feel so emboldened to do this, and they know they're going to get away with it. You think a palette swap of the colors and that everyone is what I'm saying is red, white, and blue with different shades of brown would be accepted. I definitely think if it was red, white, and blue, she'd have better odds. That teacher would have had better odds. Did you see the Jubilee video of Mehdi Hassan versus 20 fascists? So I have a rule of not watching Jubilee because it feels like brain rot. But I did watch the clip of him with the guy who was like an outright Nazi. That was crazy. It actually got me into a bit of a deep dive on Wednesday, I think. Yeah, but Tuesday or Wednesday, I got into a proper deep dive about the history of Nazism in the US. I did not know this. You might not have known this. I was under the impression that Nazism in the US was like a relatively new thing with like the neo-Nazis. But no, it turns out that Nazism has been a thing in the US basically as long as it's been a thing in Germany. So I need to show you this actually. In New York, there were across the US, there were these Nazi summer camps where you could send your kids to, and they would learn about racial purity. And throughout the 20s, 30s, well into like the 50s, Nazis had a pretty significant stranglehold on US politics. So hang on, I need to show you this. This is one Nazi settlement in New York, which had this street here. So this is a real street, or this was a real street in New York. was an Adolf Hitler Street, right? This was just a thing. This was one of many Nazi settlements in the US. They literally had summer camps that they would send their kids to. The biggest Nazi radio host would bring in about 14 million listeners every week on average. And it was just a thing. It was a valid political opinion in the 20s and 30s. It was all the way up until Pearl Harbor that things started to change. Because the issue was in the 1920s, when the Nazi movement was really picking up steam in the US, in Germany, it was considered, I guess, like a valid political ideology. And so people in the US would also embrace the ideas of Nazism. The white power people, the people who had, 50 years earlier been against freeing the slaves, just moved on and became Nazis. The big reason why nothing was done about it earlier was because the Nazis were so anti-communist. And Herbert Hoover, who was president throughout the Great Depression and things like that, was also like a huge anti-communist. And so he was like, oh, well, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and actively decided to not enforce any laws against the Nazis throughout the 1920s. Insane. And so the Nazis really had a thing going on. They had an organization called the German American Bund. And I'll show you what these rallies look like. This better not get my stream banned. But yeah, this looks like Nazi Germany. This is in the US. These are American Nazis. Insane, absolutely insane. They would organize summer camps, have parties. They were on the brink of becoming an official political party when Pearl Harbor happened. They would have ran for elections, like the American Nazis would have ran for elections had Pearl Harbor not taken place. It's wild. This is a rally in the US. There was this is one of the camps. It still exists in New York, called Camp Siegfried. There's a Wikipedia page. There we go. Camp Siegfried was a summer camp which taught Nazi ideology that was located in Yaphank, New York, on Long Island. It was owned by the German American Bund, an American Nazi organization dedicated to promoting a favorable view of Nazi Germany, and was operated by the German American Settlement League. They had like a whole town basically by the end of it. It's only recently that they've been able to rename all of the streets and everything. After World War II, I guess during World War II, they turned it into a community called German Gardens, which was approved by the city council. And the streets were named like Adolf Hitler Street, and you could only move there if you were white and European. Insane. There we go. No one could buy a house without being approved by the League. Technically a co-op, the League's bylaws included a restrictive covenant that all home buyers had to be of mostly German extraction. This was struck down by a federal judge in 2016 as the result of a lawsuit, and the community's bylaws were rewritten to comply with all fair housing laws at the state and local levels. 2016, right? There was just a Nazi town in New York until 2016. Like, what the hell? This is crazy. What the hell? Anyways, I watched a really good documentary about it. It was a PBS show called American Experience. I'd never heard of it before, but apparently it's been running since the 80s, the show. And they had an episode called Nazi Town USA, where they go into some really good detail about they go into some really good detail about the history of Nazism in the US and how it's just been a thing for like 100 years. Insane. The fact that there was an Adolf Hitler Street in New York is mad. Yeah, it really, the main thing is it was a direct continuation of the slavery movement, because there wasn't, when was the 13th Amendment, I guess, was the slavery one? 13th? Yeah, I think it was 13th. 1863, right? That was when the slaves were freed, right? 1863 to 1920 is 57 years. There were definitely people who had slaves who were also alive when the Nazis were around. And those people were obviously pretty keen on this stuff. Anyways, that's a side ramble. This is a really good watch. Highly recommend it. turns out Nazism was just a thing in the US in the 20s and 30s, and it just still is a thing now. It's not a new thing, so be mindful of that. The Ku Klux Klan and the Nazis were like best buds. But yeah, anyways, that is not why we're here. We're here to talk about college and universities. Yeah, eugenics started in the US as well, Daryl Matheson says. Yeah, the documentary actually goes into the history of eugenics as well and how that plays into it. But wild. Also, this is making before I get off this, by the way, this is making a comeback as well. Let me find the article in question. But like Nazi groups in the US have like started a big push to recruit again, and they're doing it through like gyms, as in like sports. There we go. This is the one I was looking for. Okay, so first of all, this article is not from way back. This is from a couple of days ago. In Missouri, there is a whites-only community that seeks to expand. It's called Return to the Land, and it's looking to expand to reach its base from in northern Arkansas to an area near Springfield, Missouri. And they're trying to just recreate this thing of like a whites-only community where they're going to try and buy land and effectively create like a little ethno state in Missouri. So this is coming back, and they're trying to recruit young people through gyms and fitness. So they basically like encourage teenagers and stuff to come and train and work out with them, and that's like the grooming pathway to get you in. But this is just like happening. It's mad. Anyways, that's my rant about Nazism being way more prevalent than I ever realized in America. And me being a little disappointed. But I guess it makes perfect sense that if you had slaves, you didn't just change overnight. But yes, Barron says it's wonderful that people in other countries are learning about this stuff independently. Yeah, well, yeah, I think it's definitely useful for me to know about this stuff because in my head, like US Nazis have always been like a new thing. They've always been like the the recent like white power skinhead types, the like the really cringe ones, right? But turns out no, they do have more history than I realized. Benjamin, I don't think them not speaking German is the biggest problem with them. Smart has so many times I was chased around by bald heads. Jeez. 306 token was a bit racist. Oh, I don't know about the racial elements of Lord of the Rings. Oh, there we go. Benjamin says a saw documentary about neo-Nazis in Virginia and the leader had a Gold's gym. John Gould was a Jew. And yeah, Meg, I don't think I'd feel comfortable living in a Nazi town, even if they change the laws on the books. People least able to handle exposure to a beautiful sun rays cannot be considered masters or anything. Yeah. Oh, what did I major in college? I did computer science. So I did. Oh, two people asked about my college major. So I started off as a computer science student. I did a year of computer science, and then I wasn't a fan, so I switched into the neuroscience program, and it was called natural sciences, but I basically did neuroscience for my last 2 years. The UK education system is normally quite limited as to what you can study at university, but I tried to do like as many different courses from as many different subjects as I could within the limits of my course. So I did like a history and philosophy of science course. I did like tons of maths courses because I'm like a big maths nerd. And when I was younger, I thought I'd be like a maths teacher or something like that. But really my focus was neuroscience and psychology, I guess. But yeah, I'm interested in everything. That's what I've come to realize. I like it all. I like it all. It's all very interesting. What I will say, before we get off the topic of Nazis, is if you do want a really good Nazi documentary about neo-Nazis specifically, uh, Louis Theroux, the British documentarian, has done quite a few with them, and they're pretty iconic. There's Louis and the Nazis. This is like the most famous one. Highly recommend them. He goes back as well after a few years and re-interviews them. But this was my introduction to neo-Nazism. Was Louis and the Nazis. There's a really amusing part where the neo-Nazi family that he's with can't figure out if he's Jewish or not, and they get so uncomfortable, and he won't tell them whether or not he is Jewish. And they just can't handle it. These like little children just, well, they're grown men, but they're acting like little children having a meltdown because they can't figure out whether or not they're allowed to like this documentarian. uh, but yeah, highly recommend this. 3 says, did you get up to real analysis, measure theory, combinatorics? We did do some real analysis stuff. I didn't do any measure theory stuff. Did do combinatorics, but I did basically all the maths classes that the physics and chemistry people would do outside of their physics and chemistry classes. So we did do some pretty, I guess, decently advanced stuff. Some group theory stuff. What else did we do? Yeah, we did loads of like God, this was years ago, right? Like line integrals and all that kind of stuff. Loads and loads of vector stuff. It was basically the stuff that like the physics people would do. So it was decently high level maths, I would say. I still keep up with maths. I watch a lot of 3 Blue 1 Brown, but I just had to realize I had to accept that I wasn't as good as I as I wanted to be. Okay, we're gonna catch up on chat, and then we're gonna get into the reason why we built the stream. Also, Benjamin, expecting Nazis to have some degree of sense is a lost cause, mate. It's the definition of cognitive dissonance. But yeah, 2014 Wolfenstein went on to discuss how Nazis made Americans okay with Nazis if Nazis had won the war. Well, that's the thing, right? It took a long time for the US to actually get involved in World War II, in no small part because there was internal support for those kinds of ideas within the US. The neo-Nazis were like, oh, we'll get off the Nazis, okay? Okay, we'll catch up on chat, and then we'll get to the presentation. Nico says, do you think that things are going to get to the point of revolution or mass exodus from the USA into other countries? And which other countries would they even flee to? I don't think it's gonna get to for revolution. Like things have to get really bad, and today still most Americans can eat and drink water and have shelter. A large amount don't, obviously, but I think too many are comfortable for revolution. You know, the places that have really like had a revolution in recent years are places where like the political system's been on the brink of complete collapse, right? Like, you know, Egypt or Libya and places like that. Also, the US Army has the best guns. They have really good guns. So yeah, that'll shut down anything that kicks off, right? I mean, you can see how they deal with protests that aren't even about things happening in America. You can imagine if there was actually like a meaningful revolt movement, it wouldn't take long for them to start killing people. And Smile, I do agree. Louis is fantastic. I've seen like every single Louis Theroux documentary that you can find on the internet. He's like one of my top 5 biggest inspirations in the world for sure. I just love how he gets people to open up and he always makes the person he's interviewing feel like they're smarter than he is, and so they always overshare, like under the impression that Louis isn't like directing the conversation, but he's just a masterclass at interviewing. Absolutely love the guy. A3J, hey, how you doing? I don't know if you need to have this felt in your life, but the Turner Diaries have more or less been the American skin brain Bible. It's horrible. Okay, Turner Diaries, that a Nazi thing. Let's save it for later and look into it. There's a lot of Reddit posts on New Zealand Reddit from Americans trying to come here. I'll tell you who is leaving the US in large numbers. It's scientists, which is really bad. Other countries have been doing this thing where they've been launching like grants and programs to bring over scientists to their countries because the US is cutting scientific funding so much. And France launched like a pilot program for like 300 scientists, I think, and the applications filled out within like a day. So yeah, the people who are leaving are like the best and brightest, right? The ones who can fairly easily get a spot in another country. Christopher Garcia says, "What is the college culture in the UK compared to the US from what you've seen or experienced?" I'm my experience of college culture in the US is like Project X, so that's what I've always imagined that American college is like, just like insane parties. The UK one is actually pretty nice. I had a good time at uni, but it's so dependent on where you live because some cities are like built for students, whereas others you're on a campus that's like 10 miles away from the nearest bit of civilization. But there's British people like to drink. I'll tell you that. So it does get pretty crazy. No, I had a good time. Um, yeah, there's definitely like there are a lot of people from a different cultural background to me at uni. You know, a lot of quite wealthy people, and so there was some disconnected times, but you find your people sooner or later. And I still have good friends from uni, so I'm pretty grateful. Yeah, if you okay, thank you A3J. I appreciate the recommendation. I like to learn about them. Benjamin says France and Ireland going to benefit the most of scientists, probably Spain, Norway, Switzerland, and Denmark. Honestly, the UK could benefit if we were able to organize anything and actually do anything successfully. Um, it's it's so frustrating that the UK has not been able to capitalize on this because we should be able to like poach all of these scientists from the US and actually build something at home. Uh, but if it's the UK, yeah, nothing's happening. Moving to France, but they're quickly turning to a variation of the US too. It's nowhere near as bad in France. They have a decent broad, uh, they have a decent bit of a broader political spectrum. They're actually moving more to the left recently. Their leftist coalition had like a landslide, which is a little different, a little different to the US. Praise the Sun. We had a whole section where we talked about that. That's a fun fact that I'm well aware of. That OnlyFans is the only useful thing that the UK has created in a while. Okay, hang on. I'm going to turn down my air conditioner because it's really loud. Be 2 seconds, okay? I'm an air purifier, not air conditioner. I'm also going to get some water. James, what do you mean? It's incredibly useful. Think how many lives have been helped by OnlyFans girls. They're the only people keeping the economy together at this point, man. You think there are other countries that people should look into moving to? I mean, usually I would say try and stay in your country and help from the inside as much as possible. But most countries, I think the first thing to figure out is like which countries can you move to. Um, it's pretty hard to move countries, right? It's pretty hard to move countries. I live in Canada now, and we were lucky because we had like some reciprocal agreement that makes it really easy to get a visa for a couple of years. But um, I'm thinking of going back to the UK. I might stay here. Depends how crazy the US gets in the next few years. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, as Praise the Sun says, you can help. You can help, right? And there are some real downsides to moving countries in terms of being separated from everyone and all of that. That can be quite heavy for people. But um, it depends how safe you feel, right? It depends how safe you feel day to day. I think there are valid reasons, and for example, if I was like say trans in the US or in some parts of the US at least, I might consider bouncing, but I guess it's a personal decision at the end of the day. But yeah, all I'll say is that a lot of the problems that will affect you day to day are present pretty much everywhere at this point. Um, the housing crisis is everywhere. Like cost of living and inflation is everywhere except China at the moment. But you're probably not going to be able to move to China that easily. And yeah, like a lot of the problems that healthcare is one that is better in a lot of places, but it's far from perfect, right? Like it takes 2 years for me to get like a doctor here in Quebec. Um, and I could go private. That's also expensive. I'm sure Canada hasn't become a global tech leader, selling keys to all the digital locks the US companies have created. Canada could finally fix Adobe. Yeah, the US has been really clamping down on any Canadian effort um, to deal with the big tech issue. So for a while, they've been floating this idea of a digital services tax in Canada, where US companies that make retail sales or online sales in Canada would be taxed in Canada. At the moment, what they do is when you buy something online, it's often like billed from some kind of tax haven. So usually, if you buy something in Europe, you'll see that the bill for like Amazon or from Meta or whatever is to Luxembourg. They do the same thing in Canada, where the money gets moved to some country that's a tax haven. And Canada was really close to passing a digital services tax. It was literally supposed to come into play this year, but Trump shut it down with threats of tariffs and this and that. So yeah, Canada has not really got much bargaining power at the moment, and yeah, they're very much under the US's thumb. Yeah, as Meg says, it's hard to find a country where someone's like, "Oh yeah, we're thriving, we're on the right path, um, things are going great." There aren't really that many countries where that's true at the moment. Christopher says, "Brum, like so behind on rent, it's crazy and it's hard because I'm recovering from a year of homelessness during my final year of undergrad, plus no entry level positions. That's so tough, mate. That is really tough. God, um, if at least your landlord is not evicting you, then take that right and just settle what you can or as much as you can as quickly as possible, just to show them that you'll get it back. But I've never been in that situation, so I can't really give you some practical advice. Uh, he says between healthcare, college tuition, and public transport, I find an argument for the US over another country. Doesn't make sense to me. Well, that's the thing. It's all like it's all personal, right? It's all personal. If you live, maybe in New York, you have a better situation when it comes to public transport, and you might, if you go in and if you there are ways to study in the US that are significantly cheaper. If you stay in state, you go to a public school, you can make it work, but it's all on balance. I personally have no intention of going to the US, but the reality is people are suffering everywhere. Homelessness is on the rise, like everywhere. It's probably not just your country, no matter what country you're in. The amount of homelessness in the West always breaks my brain. Like Canada alone has everything it needs to solve homelessness for all of North America. Yeah, yeah. Particularly in the US, homelessness really just, yeah. That's the one that really gets me, man. Like just the amount of it. It's better in here in Montreal compared to other cities, even in Canada. But it's just there's just so much of it. There's just so much of it, and it baffles me. The other day, I was in one area which is like the worst area in Montreal for homelessness, and you're just like, there's so many people who have nowhere to go. Like, what is going on? And there's no way this is going to get better for at least 20, 30 years. I think we're going to have it just gradually get worse and worse. Minimum, like, yeah, it really is baffling, and it just melts into the background so seamlessly, like day to day when you're going about doing your tasks. It just becomes part of the fabric of the background. Well, yeah, that's the thing, Benjamin. Like, those countries might be better for you, but Spain has its own problems. They've been protesting tourism in places like Barcelona because they're getting priced out of their housing. Um, to be fair, Norway's probably got it best at the moment, right? Because they've got they've got billions of dollars of oil just sitting underneath their islands, so they've been pretty good with that. But Denmark and Iceland as well, you're gonna have the same like similar problems at least. Iceland is a tiny place, really hard to go. Denmark is super duper expensive. Copenhagen is one of the most expensive European cities. So there are real problems everywhere, and you can definitely make your life better by moving. My life got better when I left London and I came here, but yeah, you got to ask yourself if that is the right move for you. In some cases, it will be. In some cases, it will be, but it's not like an automatic yes. Oh, hey, reject convenience. I need to reply to your message. I saw that you messaged me. I will get back to that. There's a homeless guy in my city I talk to a lot. We get coffee about once a week. Hearing how it impacts him has been eye-opening. So much of it I never thought about. I mean, that's great of you to speak to someone. That is the one thing I tried to, I think is worth trying to do at least, even if I don't have any money to give someone. Like, it's just be, exchange a few words and actually just like look them in the eye and say, I don't have anything to help you with. Sorry. Like, I don't know. I get really triggered when people like refuse to even like acknowledge the existence of a homeless person speaking to them. Um, yeah, you don't have to give the clothes off your back, but Jesus, it's not that hard to talk to someone. But yeah, I guess that stuff like that would force people to confront the fact that the overwhelming majority of us are much closer to being homeless than we are to being billionaires. Prisoner son, to be fair, the Baconator is amazing. I do love me a Wendy's Baconator. I might still take the mass transit and housing and healthcare, but the Baconator is pretty good. Read Charles Dickens, yeah. Well, praise the sun, we read a lot of Charles Dickens in school. I'm familiar with how that stuff turns out. Rough. Okay, but before we get into the presentation, where are we? 3 says IMO homeless is because of building codes. It's illegal to make shitty homes. Many third world countries have very few homeless because they're still allowed to build. Well, that's the thing, right? Like that's definitely a big aspect of it. That there's no way to have alternative living situations. I've been seeing more and more videos on YouTube. I don't know if it's just my algorithm, but it's been throwing me more and more videos of people who like live in their cars. I saw one yesterday of a person who lives in a storage unit. He's been living in there for like 3 years without getting caught. And there's just, hang on, this is another thing I saw actually. This is San Francisco's latest solution to to homelessness is there we go. It's the classic. Want to stop homelessness? Just make it illegal. So San Francisco is now banning homeless people from living in RVs with a new parking limit. And it's like, right, this is like the least socially disruptive form of homelessness. It's someone living in an RV. And now they're also going to ban that, saying that it's necessary to keep the streets clear. And I just don't know where they think these people are going to go. But like if you're banning the like least socially disruptive form of homelessness, like where do you expect these people to go? That's genuinely what I ask myself when you're banning people from living in vehicles. So there's a citywide parking limit now of 2 hours on large vehicles. I think that's the way. That's the way to stop homelessness. Make it illegal. Also, Glorilla got arrested. What? Crazy. Glorilla got arrested. That's wild. I feel like a lot of rappers have been arrested in the last week. What did they get her on? They got her on a weed charge. Classic. I feel like Glorilla is not the Fed's biggest problem in Atlanta. Anyways, I just saw that at the top and I thought I'd check it. That's it. Cecilia says, "Can we talk about the new executive order? What's the newest executive order? I promise we're gonna get to this presentation. The last executive order I saw was the one banning woke AI, which as a sentence just feels ridiculous. Okay. Yeah, this is the one. This is the last one I saw. This is on the White House website. Once again, like, how is this? This is just our normal now. Preventing woke AI in the federal government. This is a week after an AI went rogue and was calling itself Mecha Hitler. Anyways, which executive order were you talking about, Cecilia? Maybe this one. Okay, this is a homelessness one, I guess. Endemic vagrancy. Okay, so they're gonna try. I mean, this is a quick scan. They're gonna try and cut federal funding unless the states are doing certain things to do with homelessness and drug use. It's like enforcing prohibition on urban camping. Like you gotta give people somewhere else to go, though. It's tough. It's tough. Anti-homelessness laws in capital nations. Build more prisons and make being homeless a crime. Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? The prison system has been the real winner of all of this incarceration. Even with the immigration stuff, like prisons have been absolutely cleaning up. There's been so many new startups that just run effectively like camps for these immigrants, and they've been absolutely cleaning up in the last few months. Grok went from Hitler to anime girl real quick. Leah says, I think, yeah, it's going to take a couple of decades for shit to improve. In some sense, I'm happy because I'm young, because I know if I survive, I'll probably retire in a better world. Well, that's the thing. There's just also there's obviously all of the immediate problems, but then there's loads of like low level stuff that's just like simmering in the background. So obviously we talked about climate change earlier. That's just like simmering in the background. And then we've also got the debt crisis, right? Like the national debt is also just like simmering in the background, waiting to go crazy. And then you got AI just kind of chilling, doing its thing. And so I do hope that we are going to be in a better world, because people are going to be like, God, this kind of sucks. But I'll have to hope that that happens within our lifetime, because people can put up with a lot of a lot of mistreatment, right? Like if you've ever been to a third world country, you realize that people can put up with a lot of being really badly treated by the government, and if they don't have the right circumstances in place for them to stand up against it, then nothing really happens for a long time. So I'm still on your side, Lydia, and I do hope that we're gonna be all good pretty soon. And you said there's a thunderstorm outside. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh well, thank you for sticking around. Yeah, we've been getting thunderstorms here as well, like once every 2-3 weeks, and I do love them. They make me feel like I'm in a movie, proper main character stuff. New executive order: no more summer holiday for the house until you forget promise to forget about Jeffy. Okay, I'm gonna answer Praise the Sun, and then we're actually gonna get into the topic of today's stream, because I do need to get off before 11 p.m. because I want to go to Dairy Queen and get myself some ice cream to take my mind off things. Prison says, "How have you liked your first summer in Canada?" This is actually my second summer. I moved here last year in February, so I had like a summer last year, and this is my second one, and it's been great. It's been really nice. I have an air conditioner now in my bedroom, and so that's been helping a lot. And I've actually been able to see things, and I've got more friends now here, so it's actually been really good. Yeah, I went go-karting on Sunday, and it was so fun. It was really sunny. It was outdoors. Oh my god, I need to show you some pictures. It was fucking sick. This was the spot where we would go karting. Hang on. Oh, Meg, I'm gonna get a blizzard. I'm gonna get a blizzard. I was ironically introduced to Dairy Queen by Donald Trump. I'd never heard of it beforehand. But yeah. Hang on. This is the spot that I went go-karting, that you can see the track outside. It's like this huge outdoor track, and in like, 25-30 degree weather. It was so good. It really took my mind off the problems of life. But yeah, I've been trying to spend a lot of time at the park and just outdoors and loving life. Today we are going to get to this presentation eventually. Don't you all worry. Today I had lunch in the park as well, and this was the spot in question. Browser. Boop. Yeah, this is where I went to have lunch today, and I just felt like at peace. It was so nice. Just chill and live life. Oh yeah, a bunch of birds as well came up real close to me. Hang on. Yeah, all of these birds were like surrounding me. There was like 4 or 5 birds just walking right next to me. I think they wanted my sandwich, but but I took it as they were there for me. Andre Santino, welcome. I do stream. I stream every Friday about this time, and that's how the videos get made. I do a presentation live, and then I edit it down, and then people watch it on YouTube. Smile says, "Are you streaming on Twitch as well?" I should be streaming on Twitch. I've got the multi-stream thing turned on. Yep, I am also streaming on Twitch. But yeah, these birds just like surrounded me while I was having my lunch. There was like 4 or 5 of them at the peak, and they were just also so friendly and pretty. Gorgeous, bloody gorgeous, mate, bloody gorgeous. Ah, yeah, this was the one that came up closest to me. Mate, I felt like Dr. Dolittle. Ignore my crusty feet. Did you take Molly and wake up Miles in the Canadian wilderness? Nico says, "Is Dairy Queen that good? I've never had it. We have Carvel's and Cold Stone over here where I am. Curious. I can't compare to those two, but it's pretty good. I don't know. It's good enough. It's ice cream, isn't it? I feel like ice cream can only really get so good. I mainly just go because I like the aesthetic. You know, I like the old sign. It feels like a vibe, and it's not too far from me. Meg says at some point you have to get one with Heath bar and cheesecake pieces. Oh, I'll check. I'll check. I normally just go for the Oreo, the Smarties one, but I'll check. I'll check. I need to sample the menu. Jack Me says, I wish I could move up to Canada. It's so pretty up there. It is really pretty, to be fair. And I'm not even on the nice, like the prettiest side. I'm all the way on the eastern Canada. Like out west, it's gorgeous. I've never seen a bad picture from like rural Western Canada. It's so pretty. Lydia says, "Happy news! After getting laid off my birthday this week, I managed to get a new job. Hey, let's go! That looks sick. That sounds sick. That sounds sick. Well done, well done. Congratulations, man. It is so hard to get work. Yeah, that's an achievement. You should be proud of yourself." Canada's going to be a superpower after the forest finish turn into grassland. And ironically, climate change is going to be really good for Canada when like half the Arctic melts because it's going to open up tons of trade routes, specifically between like China and Western countries as well, and China and Canada when all of that ice melts. So they're actually maybe going to become winners from it. And Mr. said, yeah, they definitely wanted my food. Bye, Smile. Okay, get cracking on the tunnel house. It was a pleasure to have you. And praise the sun. Tim Hortons is very mid. It got bought out by some Americans like years ago, so it's like McDonald's. It's very very mid, which is pretty. Yeah, Canada or Scotland. I think Scotland has to take the dub for that. Oh, I think Scotland for density, but I think Canada for range. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'll see you later as well. Reject convenience. Okay. That was a quality yapping session. We went for almost 2 hours before getting to the topic of the stream. Right, let me get my stuff prepped. Okay. Okay. Let's get some more. There we go. A lot brighter. I don't look like a movie character so much anymore. On China and Russia are already fighting over the territory. They are. Yeah, it's climate change is like so important for so many different reasons. And the military is obviously a huge one. Like if you have like a brand new route open up between China and the rest of the West, that's like quite important. Like you think people would check on that. Yeah, anyways, let's get to the topic of the stream, which is talking about college. I need to get my presentation and my notes up and then we can get cracking. Meg, you're right, the chat is popping today. It is extremely active, but it's nice. Nice to have people to talk to and nice to see everyone so active. Okay, bear with me. Okay, I gotta make sure I'm recording. Am I recording audio? Testing. Alright, okay, that's recording. Darthgriff says, for me, I'm Native American, don't think I'll ever move outside the Americas. Because it's where, it's where my ancestors lived for thousands of years. I know it's going to get bad in the US with climate change. Yeah, I mean, that's very fair. That is very, very fair. And it is going to get bad in the US, especially, I guess, anywhere that's not like one of the temperate parts of it, right? Like maybe if you're in Minnesota or something, you might be a bit better off than Arizona. Morgan Stanley had their actuaries put out a risk assessment and they're planning for 3 degrees. God. Yeah, if you want to really know like how bad it's going to get, I think the places to look are um, banks and insurance companies, because insurance companies have no incentive to lie, and you're already seeing that there are certain parts of the US where insurance companies just won't cover you because they know how bad the situation is going to get. Parts of Florida, parts of California, where they're like, yeah, humans shouldn't should not be living here. Wild. Okay. Let's get cracking. We'll bash out this little talk, learn a little bit more about college. It's going to focus mostly on unemployment, but hopefully you're going to learn a thing or two and feel a bit more educated, if not a little bit more depressed. But I have to read this stuff and I get depressed by it, so I'm going to share it with you. All right, let's get cracking. Boop. Unemployment experts. Oh, okay, hang on. Okay, there we go. Boop, boop, boop. Let's get cracking. Just gonna make sure I'm recording. Yep. Yep. I'll do this so I can. Right, let's go for it. Yeah, so jobs are pretty hard to find at the moment, and that's not really news to anyone who's been looking for one. I remember when I was young, they'd always say that if you didn't work hard in school, you'll end up working at McDonald's for the rest of your life. But we're at the point now where even getting a job at a place like McDonald's is impossibly difficult. Retail jobs feel just as competitive as any other piece of work. And not everyone's been affected equally. The thing is, the situation's bad because we we've got world leaders now going and saying that rising unemployment might not necessarily be a bad sign, and I think that's when we're pretty cooked. Unfortunately, some groups have been hit harder than others by this crisis, and one of the groups that's been hit the hardest by this rise in unemployment has been university graduates, specifically recent university graduates. We've talked before about how college graduates have an unemployment rate that's twice as high if they graduated recently versus at any time. So recent college graduates have a 5.8 unemployment rate, a 5.8% unemployment rate, which is double the average for all college grads, and it's above the average for all workers in general. This is the group specifically that was promised liberation by going to school. That was promised that they'd be able to get jobs and they'd be able to be freed. And even amongst college graduates, there's an interesting trend as well that I think is worth talking about, which is that rising graduate joblessness is mainly affecting men. So in the US, there's been this little bit of a divergence in recent months where the unemployment rate for men specifically has begun to spike, while the unemployment rate for women who've recently graduated from college has slowly started to soften. And we're at the point now where actually, if you're a guy, young male college grads are now jobless at the same rate as non-graduates. So if you're a dude and you went to college, you may as well have not bothered. So yeah, the unemployment rate for male graduates specifically has ticked up in just recent months, and I thought this was quite strange, and I think it's worth exploring. And if you listen to the Twitter replies of the journalists who actually observe this phenomenon, the explanations you get tend to go along something like this. The people on Twitter think it's DEI that in the last 6 months corporations have been trying to churn out girl bosses to intentionally spite men. there were literally dozens of comments like this in the Twitter replies of the journalist who reported on this story. And I was not quite convinced, to be honest. I don't think there's a secret plot in the last 6 months by Jeff Bezos to churn out girl bosses, as he says. And unsurprisingly, there are much more reasonable explanations for what's going on here. And I decided to look into it a little bit further. So, despite this idea of unemployment being really high and it being a really hard environment for anyone to find work in, the headline jobs numbers have actually been really good lately. So the US added 147,000 jobs in June, which was actually well above what was expected. And amongst all of this bad job market story, there's been growth in the numbers, which seems like it would be like a paradox, but it's actually totally not. So if we look at these job numbers and where the job growth is actually happening at the moment, it's literally just in two sectors. The people who have been able to find jobs lately are those who work in government, so specifically like state and local government, which has been hiring a bit more, and those who work in healthcare. The overwhelming majority of job growth in the last few months has been in those two industries. They're basically keeping these numbers afloat. And when you see this 147,000 jobs number, you should be well aware that it's basically all state and local government. And in the private sector, it's just healthcare, really. And unsurprisingly, healthcare has been a female-dominated industry for a while now. So this rise in healthcare jobs has disproportionately benefited women in the workplace and has helped soften the unemployment rate for women who've recently graduated from college. However, this is I don't know how to break it to you. This is not a DEI plot by Jeff Bezos. What's actually just been happening is that for decades now, American people have just been getting really, really old. So 1 in 5 Americans is projected to be 65 years or older by 2030. In 1930, for example, this number was 1 in 20. So Americans have been getting really, really old and really, really sick for the last few decades. And this has been represented more and more in the unemployment rates. In order to understand like how extreme this change actually is, I think it's worth looking at what the biggest industries are in America these days. So in the 90s, in 1990 specifically, the top industry in most states was manufacturing. You can see here on the map, like most states were basically just manufacturing states. Today in 2024, the top employer in each state is almost always healthcare, right? It's almost always healthcare. There's only a handful of states where the top employer is not a healthcare, it's not the healthcare industry. There's like what, Nevada, which is hospitality, and then Utah. Is that Utah, the yellow one, retail? I guess the Mormons are keeping the retail industry alive. And then what's the one above that? Wyoming, I think. Is that Wyoming? The green one? But yeah, the healthcare situation in the US is pretty extreme. The population has aged so dramatically that the top employer in almost every state is now healthcare, with a handful of states managing to hold on to manufacturing and a couple holding on to the hospitality industry. We're now at the point where the US population is so old that Americans spend more on healthcare than they do on groceries and housing. And you can see that it's only projected to get worse as Americans get older and older. But these factors have all helped to prop up a little bit of unemployment for women specifically, because they dominate the healthcare industry to much higher degrees than men. In the 1990s, when the top employer was manufacturing, this did wonders for male unemployment and helped keep them in jobs. And thankfully, unemployment should be coming right back down because the US is going to get tons of new manufacturing jobs, screwing in little screws into iPhones any minute now, okay? Any minute now. Except that wouldn't really help, to be honest, because the US actually already has a massive shortfall in manufacturing jobs. Nearly 500,000 open jobs in the manufacturing industry. And it just turns out that there isn't a shortage of jobs in male-dominated industries. It's just that today's men don't want to do the jobs in these male-dominated industries like manufacturing, for good reason. I think there's an interesting little quirk that happens. Yeah, there's this weird little quirk that happens when you ask people about manufacturing in the US. So if you ask Americans if America would be better off if more Americans worked in manufacturing, the overwhelming majority are in favor. Over, 80%, 80 plus percent of people are in favor of more Americans working in manufacturing. If you rephrase this question a little bit though, and you ask them, would your life be better if you specifically worked in manufacturing? People people change their tune. There's this weird collective nostalgia in the US for manufacturing jobs and the idea that they're gonna, free men and potentially college educated men from their shackles of unemployment. But it's largely just like a myth and based in nostalgia because the US already has tons of open manufacturing positions. And people know deep down that they don't want to work in a factory because it's really grim. Turns out people don't want to put little screws into iPhones in the US. And when you see that the rise in graduate unemployment is concentrated amongst men, it's actually quite easy to take away the wrong message from this and end up in the place that those Twitter commenters ended up, where you think that it's a DEI plot or something. There are actually much more just like reasonable explanations, as there usually is for this stuff. Really what we're seeing is that this pattern of college educated men and women not being able to get jobs is really just a story around how there are very few good quality jobs, period. Like there are very few good quality jobs in many industries, but certain demographics have been protected effectively more because of demographic factors that have changed outside of their control and because of changes at a population level. And bizarrely, like this is in an environment where white collar jobs have become more and more common, and you would have expected the benefit of going to college to have increased with the proportion of white collar jobs increasing. White collar office jobs make up more and more jobs. They make up more jobs today than they ever have at any point in history. And yet it's gotten progressively harder, it seems, to get a white collar job if you are a college graduate. Derpe, this is the live stream, but it's a premiere. It's going to be edited into a video later on. Are these well-paid jobs with benefits jobs? Well, that's the thing as well, right? They don't tell you they don't tell you like what these jobs are, right? They don't even tell you if they're temporary jobs for the next 12 months or 36 months or whatever. Jobs numbers can be a bit nebulous. But as I was saying, there's usually a more reasonable explanation. But it is bizarre that it's become so hard to get a job, especially for college graduates, given that the economy has shifted so heavily, at least in the US, towards services. And white collar jobs make up a bigger proportion of jobs today than they did in 1985. Really, what I think we're seeing here is an example of something that's called the K-shaped economy or the K-shaped recovery. Really, I think the story is more about inequality than anything else. There's been this thing that's been happening since the pandemic called the K-shaped recovery, and it's created a situation where some parts of the economy are doing extremely well, while other parts are stagnating. And if you look at the overall picture, it seems like the economy is doing generally pretty healthy, but rather what's happened is that a really large group is left behind, while another group, which is much smaller, has rocketed ahead. And if we look at the story through like the lens of inequality, we understand a lot more how colleges have let down their students. The K-shaped economy is the idea that you can get two headlines like this within a few weeks of each other. S&P 500 and Nasdaq rally to record highs on optimism about trade deals, but also late credit card payments have hit a record high. These two stories are within like a few weeks of each other, and I think they exemplify this idea of a K-shaped economy. And the same story is playing out in education as well. So for a long time, like going to university or going to college conferred you what was called it gave you what was called the college wage premium. So the idea that like if you get a degree, you're going to earn more, which is why people go to school, if we're honest. And this premium was really robust, and it does still exist. If you go to university, you still, on average, are likely to earn more. But not everyone is likely to earn more, because what's happened in recent years is that the college wage premium has become bigger for some group of people and smaller for another group of people. So I read this paper from the National Bureau of Economic Research, and they analyzed this college wage premium, this bonus that you get from having a degree, amongst different demographic groups. And they've noticed effectively that going to college has become regressive, offering more to kids the richer they are. So if you have wealthier parents, the benefit that you get to your salary from having gone to university has skyrocketed. But if you have less wealthy parents, the benefit that you get has only increased a tiny little bit. And the premium for going to university has, over the last few decades, become more and more concentrated amongst those students whose families are already wealthier. Instead of a degree giving you this almost guaranteed bonus in wages, it really is just like a multiplier on the social status that your family already has, unfortunately. So if you have a wealthy family, the difference between what you would earn with a high school diploma and a degree has gotten way bigger. But if you don't have a wealthy family, the difference has gotten a lot smaller. And in this paper, they actually explain a good few reasons why this is the case, why less wealthy students are being hurt more, are benefiting less from having a degree. One of the big reasons is that over the last few decades, federal and state funding has gone disproportionately to the big research-oriented universities. So you can think of, Harvard's, MIT's, places like that. And those places tend to be a lot more socially stratified. They have far more high-income students than a regular public school, a regular state school. And this has only served to really increase the disparity between wealthier students and low-income students. The schools that take on low-income students have received a fraction of the federal funding that the biggest private universities have. Yeah, return to feudalism, unfortunately. The other reason, which I thought was quite interesting, is that for-profit universities have been increasingly gobbling up students that come from low-income families. And the outcomes, if you go to a for-profit university, are not really very good. The whole idea of for-profit universities existing in the first place is wild, but they disproportionately advertise and market and target low-income students who are more likely to sign up, are more likely to take out large amounts of debt to pay for them, and who are less likely to actually get a benefit from going to a for-profit university. Just brief side note, I think for-profit universities are basically like a giant money laundering scheme. It's insane how much some of these universities depend on federal student aid. So, for example, this was... so, sorry. So, for example, the University of Phoenix, which is a for-profit university, gets as much as 88% of its revenues from federal student aid. It's literally just exists to siphon student loan money out of the government coffers, and they spend a significant amount of this money on like marketing and online promotion, which deliberately targets lower income students and has hurt their earnings relative to higher income students. I mean, yeah, it's basically like a glorified embezzlement scheme. But, it's also worth acknowledging that poorer students are less likely to get into more competitive programs like engineering and technology, which are pretty concentrated and pretty competitive. And, what we've seen as well with the rise of big tech is that the lucrative opportunities for university students have become really concentrated into just like a handful of sectors. And so those sectors have become ultra competitive, like stuff like engineering, like technology, and so the more concentration we have of high earning jobs into a handful of sectors, the harder it is for students as a whole to benefit from that. If you can't get into a good quality STEM program, a good quality tech program, a good quality engineering program, it suddenly becomes a lot more difficult to make a good living after university. And yeah, praise the sun. Trump had Trump University, which was under federal investigation for a good while. But yeah, we'll take a quick break. See what chat is saying. I remember a high school teacher enthusiastically telling me that I have no problem getting into engineering. They want butts and seats, she told me. I'd be questioning what I thought I'd achieved. Gentleman Bronco say, yeah, college is so backward because US state and federal government used to go to pay for student tuition. Now it goes to unis. So every student has to go in debt. And 1970s, 70% of unis paid for. Now 30% by government. Yeah, that's the thing. The cost has just skyrocketed. Part of it is that there's like no restriction on what universities can charge, which is a problem, because when the government is willing to match aid to whatever the university charges, like a lot of these schools are incentivized to charge more than they should. That's what I'm saying. But I think, okay, it doesn't actually have to be this way, right? So when we talk about this idea that like going to college boosts your earnings, it doesn't actually have to like necessarily be this way. And there's an interesting difference between the situation in Germany and the situation in the US when you look at this idea of like a graduate wage premium, of like you getting a premium for getting a college degree. Sorry, kitty cat is craving attention. I'm sorry, buddy. I can't do this right now. Okay, what's up? What's up? Come here. I'm back. Okay, what were we saying? Yeah, so what I was saying is that there's an interesting difference when you compare Germany and the US in this regard, because the college wage premium story, the idea that you earn more by going to school, is really different in Germany compared to the US. So in Germany, it actually turns out that the benefit of going to university on your lifetime wages is a lot smaller than it is in America. And this might actually seem like a bad thing at first, but it's really not. It might lead you to think as well that maybe American universities are just like significantly better than German ones, but that's also unlikely to be the case because Germany is like the third biggest economy in the world. It's not a small country, and yet they have this significant divergence between them and the US, where going to university in Germany doesn't necessarily boost your wages by as much. And this isn't because German university educated workers don't earn necessarily decent salaries. It's for another reason entirely. So I looked at another paper from the National Bureau of Economic Research where they tried to investigate this question, and they created a model to estimate the impact of like different factors. And the largest contributor to this idea that German university graduates don't earn like significantly more than high school graduates is actually employment protection. So they found that in Germany, the employment protection laws are so much stronger that they create a massive incentive for companies to invest in the development of all their staff, not just their highest earners. So small, medium, and large businesses in Germany are a lot more incentivized to reinvest in jobs and job positions that will benefit the company in the long term, because it's so much harder to fire someone once you've hired them. It's created this like cycle where, because German companies are a lot less likely to fire you, they're much more incentivized to make you the most productive worker that they can make you while you're there. because it makes more sense to spend that money on improving the quality of staff you have than to just get rid of them as soon as they don't hit the right threshold at work. Sorry, buddy. I think there's a really good example, by the way, that highlights exactly how this setup works. And the best example I think is Amazon in the US, because you might have missed this, to be honest, but just a couple of years ago, a report leaked from Amazon headquarters where they admitted that they were on the brink of running out of Americans that they could hire, because Amazon's whole strategy at their warehouse is to have such terrible working conditions that people just come in and out. They're incentivized to just get new people every time because that's cheaper than actually training people. This is largely because worker protection is so weak in the US that the best strategy for Amazon has been to just like have people churn in and out. And they're getting to the point now where they're literally running out of Americans that they can hire. This is according to their own internal reports. Whereas in Germany, you have a setup which has much stricter worker requirements. And so that's led to a setup where workers stay at one job for a lot longer. And in that time, the company is hugely incentivized to train them up. But yeah, finding out that Amazon is on the brink of literally running out of Americans that can work with them, I think is such a fucking highlight of what the what the workers' rights situation actually is there. And this is also a big reason why Amazon has invested so much in robots, by the way, because not just for efficiency, but they have literally no choice. I mean, well, they could make the working conditions better, but that's not a real option for them. Yeah, as Cecilia says, workers can sue if they get laid off without due cause. The turnover rate is horrible at Amazon. Yeah, it's really bad. Like even in the like software development departments, people don't last more than a couple of years there usually before they're gone. Amazon's whole strategy is just work people to the bone while you have them, and just get someone new as soon as they tap out. But yeah, there was one graph in this paper that I looked at that really put it into perspective. If you look at high school graduates in Germany, which are represented by the yellow line here, they're way more likely to stay at a job for 20 plus years compared to the US. So these lines represent the percentage of workers with a tenure of over 20 years at their current job. And in a place like Germany, which does have much stronger working protection laws, you have people staying at one company for decades in far more cases than you do in a place like the US, which creates this cycle where the employer is like massively incentivized to invest in that person's development, to help them grow and to help them be a good employee. Whereas in the US, you have the strategy of working someone to the bone until they physically can't handle it anymore and then getting a new body in the room. That makes sense. You have no choice but to work 12-hour days. Jeez. The good part is that you have 4-day work weeks, but Prime Week is mandatory. That's still 48 hours, you know? It's a busy week. God. But yeah, the point I'm making is that this effect has actually had a significant effect on wages, which is the idea that if an employee stays at a workplace for a long time and the employer is incentivized to develop that employee, the average skill level just goes up, and high school graduates are able to earn a much more decent wage without necessarily needing several years of additional education that wouldn't really benefit them in any other way. And like obviously it's not a perfect situation in Germany, you know, like when it comes to layoffs, for example, older workers are less likely to get laid off than younger workers. And that can be pretty problematic in certain companies where maybe the younger workers are actually more useful. But it's at least an incentive structure that stops people from getting really screwed And that really raises the floor for workers that choose to not go into further education or higher education. And I think when you see like this idea of like a college premium, of a bonus in earnings from going to college, it isn't really a bonus. It's not necessarily that people with degrees have been lifted up. It's that people without degrees in the US have been pushed down really far because they have way less bargaining power on average and are victims of really bad employment policies. Whereas the ones with degrees have been able to just keep their head above water and kind of insulate themselves from these bad policies. And the group of people that have been able to push their head above water has been getting smaller and smaller and smaller due to rising inequality in universities and due to some industry specific trends, right? The rise in healthcare jobs has helped to make it look like women are not as affected by it, but the problem is clearly still there. And for a long time these dynamics were like pretty hidden because going to college gave you another major advantage, which was that you were the first to sample new technology. You were able to you were able to develop skills that you wouldn't otherwise be able to develop if you hadn't gone to university. If you went to university in the late 2000s or early 2010s, you likely had much more time to use a computer. You had much more practice with software and tools that other people wouldn't have had. And those skills have today become ultra commonplace. Darthgriff says, the only place I felt incentivized to stay was in childcare. I had yearly raises of like $1.30, and that was in the entry level. Oh wow, only needs a high school diploma. Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? Like the difference you see here is not people with a degree being lifted up, it's people without a degree being pushed pretty far down. And now more and more people with a bachelor's are also being pushed down. There's this idea of overqualification, which is the idea that you don't need the qualification you have right now to do the job that you have. So, for example, if you're a university graduate that's doing a job that could be done by a high school graduate, you're considered to be overqualified. And there are tons and tons of overqualified people today in all wealthy countries. In the UK, it's as high as 37%, right? So 37% of workers have a qualification that they do not need for the job that they're currently doing. And these numbers just seem to be getting worse. In part because the skills that you would get from a college degree, like being able to use technology really well, have become really commonplace, but also because the opportunities are just not there anymore as much. There are tons of like college graduates at the moment who are functionally like in the workplace, no different to a high school graduate. And so they are treated like the high school graduates, and they are a lot more susceptible to dodgy employment practices or not being able to get a job at all. What's up, bub? And yeah, this has started to like kebab seller has a degree in chemical engineering. That's I mean that's literally the situation, right? Yeah. But yes, things are starting to change, which I find interesting, and the number of like first year college students is actually starting to trend downwards, which is quite surprising. I think a lot of people have been put off by things like debt and the lifelong commitment to student debt, which is one of the biggest forms of debt in the US. But I don't think this is really going to help that much on like a grander scale, because the working environment in the US is a big contributor to the lack of good jobs. The complete lack of employment protection is a really big contributor. And colleges sold the dream that if you got a degree, you'd be able to push yourself outside of that bubble and be kind of independent of those factors. But that's clearly showing itself not to be true, given that the benefits of a college degree have been getting smaller and smaller and smaller every year and have been concentrated amongst a smaller and smaller group of people and have just perpetuated the increasing cycle of inequality that we've been observing for the last several decades, unfortunately. Hey ho. I guess we have to just hope that people act to change things and organize more in the workplace, because that's really the only method that's been shown to work decently well at protecting wages, not just for college graduates, but for everyone in the workforce. But yeah, hope that gives you some insight into what's going on. Really, the thing that's been going on that's been worth being aware of is that healthcare jobs are really the only thing keeping the economy going at the moment. And the benefit of college is being increasingly like limited to people who are already independently wealthy, because they have an advantage in the choice of school that they go to. They can go to schools that receive much more federal funding. They have an advantage in the choice of major, and they're much more likely to get into the few competitive majors that actually like can give you a good living. And ultimately, I think the story is more about inequality than it is about gender or anything like that, as is exemplified by other countries, where even workers that have a lower level of formal education can still, figure out a better life for themselves. Yeah, the thing is, at the end of the day, a more educated population should be a good thing for everyone. But we're in a setup now where the promise of university is that it's going to let you put your head above water and not be susceptible to the same like general social patterns that everyone else is subject to, and not necessarily as subject to the same laws and rules as everyone else. But that promise is slowly dying. Hey ho. That is my way to tell you that if you're in the workforce at the minute, good luck, bro. Good luck. So yeah, I don't think that necessarily like going to trade school is the solution, but it can help. And people, like workers in all industries, just need like a better setup to organize and to bring everyone up. Because if you raise the floor, then you raise everyone. I think I missed the discussion in chat. I am here. You saying you were teaching, right? And I saw you posted a comment about this fraud in community colleges. What's going on there? And Bronco says Europe has great protection to nearly all of life: food safety, worker privacy, wages, and electoral. USA has the freedom to be broke and die. Yeah, the freedom to die is truly the ultimate freedom. But yeah, thank you, Cecilia. Thank you for the kind words. I hope that was a little bit educational. We've been going for 2.5 hours now. That's a decent little run. Yeah, I think we'll call it there for this evening. We got a presentation bashed out. We did a hell of a lot of yapping, and we did our presentation. I'm gonna soothe this cat because she, I think, is in need of attention. But aside from that, I guess it was good to be on. As I say, I am going to make an effort to be on more regularly. I was planning, sitting down, writing, and trying to figure out what I need to change to do that, and I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. But Mahir says my community college is in a town owned by a mobster. You living in the Sopranos or something? Criminal use of funds happen regularly. Damn. I mean that does suck. That does suck. But all I'll say is, can you figure out a way to get yourself on the winning side of that? But yeah, I think my cat needs some love. She's getting on my back. In the meantime, I'll say thank you to everyone for showing up. We're gonna try and be online more often, as I always say, but at least on Fridays. In the meantime, what I will say is you can follow the Patreon, linked in the description. There's a free tier if you're interested. I'm trying to post a bit more on there. Little bits and bobs, just a little community space. Or you can subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't already. Get notified every time I upload, and yeah, you don't miss the streams or the videos. I try not to spam too much, so it shouldn't be a problem. But aside from that, I'm gonna wish you all a real good night and a good weekend. We'll be back on soon enough, and we'll have some good old yaps again. Okay. Bye bye. Bye. Bye bye. Bye. Bye Meg. Bye Cecilia. Bye Mihir. Bye Darth Griff. Bye Benjamin. Bye. Do, 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 do.